What is up, y'all? We are here for our weekly romance, oracle, and tarot message. Hope everybody's doing well. I tested a method out of uploading last night for last night's video, and I've heard YouTubers or YouTube experts say that you should upload your video and schedule its release for like 24 hours in advance or something, so that the algorithm can like fully process the video and understand what it is and what it's about, so it knows like who to show. And I didn't have time to do it for the 24 hours, but it seemed kind of faulty because even after it was set to premiere, it wasn't like, I don't know, it wasn't letting me watch it. I don't know if it was you, but it didn't, like, I only got like 8 views on that video. And I'm guessing that people went to it thinking it was premiering, and then it wasn't. It was like coming soon, and then they just went about their business and thought, well, maybe I'll come back later. And so I don't know. I don't know if I like that method, but I don't know. Let me know if you had confusion when you saw that. So also there was somebody that had a question or a comment about last night's video, and I'm still a little confused about what they were asking and what they meant in the comment. They felt something was backwards, or they were feeling something was backwards, and they were their comment was about the higher self versus the lower self, and they were just saying how well, let me just clarify instead of going into like a long sidetrack about what that is. Let me just clarify my clarifying statement and say that was a good comment and question to pose. I wish I had something else to read hold on. I have this old phone and it might let me open. No, it's offline. Okay, so it won't let me see it. So basically their question was, needing some clarity around the higher self versus the lower self and the ego and how that all played in. And so I feel, or at least that's what I drew from their comment. I might be wrong. So I feel that, like, when I'm talking about the higher self versus the lower self, I feel like the higher self is our spirit self that is trying to urge us towards our fullest becoming and awakening and blossoming, so that we can express our full light in this life and channel that light of the Creator into the world. And I think that looks differently for everyone, right? For some people, literally the plot looks different for everyone. For some, it might be on a career path as in the medical field. For some, it might be in the arts. For some, it might be stay at home and being a really amazing parent and family member. It looks different for everyone, and no path is better or worse than another, and no path is right or wrong or anything like that. It's just each person has a unique journey and script laid out for their life, right? But our higher self helps us blossom into the fullness of our being within our own personal movie or story. And so the lower self is the part of us that sort of works against us and wants to stay in a comfort zone, and it resists the growth. It resists our becoming. It resists our awakening. And that plays on our ego plays into that. Now, a healthy ego is the ideal, right? We have the higher octave of the ego, which allows us to feel like what we have to offer and what we have to say and our perspective is important, and we have something to give. And so it gives us the motivation to put ourselves out there, right? And sometimes even that drive to achieve helps us, be of service and give to others. And so a higher octave of the ego, the greater expression of the ego, the perfected, healed version of the ego, has something amazing to give and to share with the world, and they can see where they can fill a gap or serve a need, and they are driven to achieve this in order to make an impact, right? In order to bring good into the world. Whereas the lower octave of the ego, or the unhealed ego, the ego that like the opponent has like the best time with, is the reactive ego, the ego that is looking for what can this thing bring me? What am I getting out of this? Like, for instance, for example, say an actor, right? The most critically acclaimed, most well-paid, like the elite actors of the world, they aren't the ones that started off going, man, I want to be rich, I want to be famous, I don't have private jets, I don't have a yacht, I want to, have champagne, popping bottles, champagne service. Like, there are those celebrities out there, but those aren't usually the artists that we take seriously. And those aren't usually the artists that get the roles that end up making an impact on humanity through their performance, through being a vessel that shares these stories, right? That change our minds and our hearts and our perspectives about things. Whereas you have the actor who just wants to be famous and just wants to have the pain, the fame and the power and the lust and the money and all that. And they usually end up in a downward spiral of chaos. And so there's the difference. Same with like the businessman, right? Or woman. The CEO has a company that makes a product. And they can go into two different directions. They can be one of those, like, look at Bill Gates, for instance. At one time in recent history, was the richest man on earth. And he is known for being, a philanthropist and doing good things for the world. And now versus, what's the Amazon guy? I can't even remember his name right now because he's not that, he does bad things. And his whole philosophy is that he wants his employees to show up scared to death every day that they're going to be fired, so they'll do the most. And it's like people get underpaid and they're exploited, and bad ingredients are put in food because it's cost effective, but it's making people sick in the long run. Like, that's the difference between that lower self that can sabotage the higher self, which can be expressed in a beautiful way, right? And so it can be that's on a scale though, right? That these are just examples and metaphors. It can be like, say this person is a sour person who's angry and closed off. Their, journey might be opening themselves up and softening their heart and letting people in. That might be their version of their higher self, leading them to their fullest potential. So when I talk about fullest potential, I'm not necessarily talking about making the most money that you can and going as far as you can in your job. I mean, how can you become the most beautiful expression of your soul and your real true self in this world? And how can you express your unique purpose and gifts and in the way that you interact with our reality and the people in it, the animals in it, the plants with it, and all of that? Like, how are you, what is your energy in this world? How are you affecting and impacting the world around you? And that doesn't necessarily mean prosperity and success in that way. And abundance can look like a lot of different things. And that doesn't necessarily equate to riches, and excess. So honing in and giving some nuance to that, I do think that like your lower self is usually like that base self that is prone to being reactive and possibly driven by scarcity and fear and lack and doubt. And it's not that we're trying to sever that part of ourselves. What we are trying to do is to transcend the lower almost demons that hold us in those fears and those insecurities. And we transcend those so that we can bring that lower self up into union with the being of the self we are here and the higher self, right? And so we can come into wholeness and fullness, but we're just bringing that part of the self up, right? Embracing it, pulling it in and helping it so that it can transcend that suffering and rise above it and be free from it, right? And so the whole self comes together in completion instead of being at war with the self, right? And when we kind of overcome, that lower self is always trying to keep us off of that divine plan and God's will, Whereas like the higher self is trying to lead us to God's will, the lower self is usually too afraid and trying to survive. And so the opponent is like playing on that, right? And playing into that and using that part of us to pull those strings. That's the part of us that makes us vulnerable to being swayed this way or that. And so we, when Jesus taught, and Mary Magdalene understood this, and this is part of, I think, her gospel, is the part that she talks about how we are both equally human and divine, and that both are valid and both are valuable and both are to be integrated, to be fully whole. It's not one over the other. So I hope that helps just in clarifying. It's not, when I say this versus this, like higher self versus lower self, I don't necessarily always mean versus each other like a death match, like versus you, but this in comparison or as opposed to this kind of thing. All right, well, let's get into our love reading. And we're going to grab a couple of romance angel cards, and then we'll clarify with a couple of cards from the Tarot of the Psychic Heart. So we're just looking at what we need to know about our love lives for the week. How do we need to direct our attention, and how do we need to focus the work? Let your friends help you. Ask for and accept support from others. So yeah, we all need our friends, but I think when it comes to our love lives, they have a perspective of us that they can see our blind spots. And so depending on how courageous and vulnerable you are, able to be, you could have a conversation with a trusted friend and say, is there anything that you can see about me, or that you feel that you've seen patterns of mine that keep me stuck where I am, Or this could also reference the fact that so many times we meet people through our friends, or our friend groups help us develop and become more of ourselves and see more of ourselves. And whilst in these relationships and through them, we meet other people, and through them we meet other people, and those people introduce us to more people. And so that's a lot of times how we end up meeting, romantic partners. So let your friends help. They may have someone they want you to meet, or you may even, meet this person through a friend group. All right. Flirt, extend your lighthearted energy to others. So it's this year has been a heavy one for sure. So it's some days I have to stop myself before I leave the house because I'm in such heavy energy. And I was thinking about that today, actually, or the last couple of days. I've had just a lot of heavy adulting to do over this week, and in the midst of these things on earth that are happening. In fact, I wanted to do a short today just calling attention to this week. Our assignments have been looking at our anger when it comes up and transmuting that. So what have you been noticing has been setting you off this week? What's been triggering you? What's been pissing you off? What's been getting you into those crying fits, Or what has frustrated you? Where do you feel like you're just I could just, And even if it's world events, for instance, and you start going down, you start going there. If you let yourself start popping off and rattle into yourself and you blow off some steam, what is it that you're pissed off about? What's pissing you off? And if you start talking about, the world events going on, it's yes, that is valid. That's the umbrella trigger that's getting everyone stirred up right now. That's the pressure that's putting us in that pressure cooker. But on a personal level, doing our own personal tikkun, because we've got to worry about the world, or not worry, but pray for the world and correct for the world and do our best to bring light into the world. But we can't neglect our own personal journey, right? Those are kind of separate entities. So like, for instance, a rabbi or a pastor, they pastor a church, and it seems like they're always in the process because they're doing the curriculum for the process and sharing it with everyone else. But a lot of times the work, preparing all of these sermons and these talks and these classes, they have to really focus and make time to set aside to do their own personal work and think about it in terms of their own development, right? So I got lost in my thoughts. Oh, yes. So anyway, what are the world triggers, the collective triggers making you upset about on a personal level for yourself? Right? What, like, if you're angry, like if you keep talking about it and keep following that anger and keep talking about what are you angry about and why does that make me so pissed off? And what is, what does that really mean? It will help you see what the real problem is, what's the real root of it. And it's funny too, because I had my kind of like a little bit of a meltdown the last couple of mornings, and it was tied up with like the greater challenges of society right now. But when I got down to it circled right back to my my tikkun issues in life, my personal ones. So it helped me get specific about, well, why am I frustrated right now? And what is this really about? This goes back further, right? So what is this if it's about me right now? If I'm really upset about me and I'm relating it to these things, and these things are triggering these things and bringing them up, let's get into it. Let's talk about it. Let's go deeper. What is pissing me off and why? And let's go into that, So letting those things come up and paying attention and shining some light on them, because when we can feel through them, we can move them out of ourselves. We can digest it and really change it and let go of that anger, right? So flirt. So this morning, I needed to go out and run some errands, but I was kind of having a tired, scared, frustrated fit. A child, toddler, adult fit. And I was just thinking about, like, what is it that I'm really angry about? But then I caught myself. I was like, okay, before I leave the house, I really need to get my energy in a better place, because you never know what can happen when you're out and about, when your meet cute can happen, right? And you don't want to go out in your community with like a dark cloud of misery and anger. You want to be light and flirty. So it does take some self-resolve and maybe awareness these days to sort of check your mood before you get out and be light and playful with people, and, allow your light to shine. Be cute, be flirty. Don't hide your feelings and play so aloof and cool that you're not building chemistry. And then even just generating a flirty feeling, even if it's just like with, the person that's the cashier at, Walgreens, like the little old lady, whoever it is, doesn't matter. Just flirt with the world, right? Calling in our soulmate. I think that this was also part of our Tuesday's manifestation reading. So the soulmate card keeps coming up, which is interesting. Your prayers, affirmations, and visualizations help bring you together. So it's going to happen eventually, right? And as we take off all these layers of what is not us, that helps shine that light. And I think with working out this anger, it's helping to unblock our heart. That's part of a lot of the central focus of the themes this week too, is just like unblocking that heart and letting that love through. And in order to do that, in order to deal with the anger, we have to feel it, right? And so as it comes up, let yourself feel it, but explore it and get to the root of it, get to the bottom of it. What are you really mad about? Don't try to make it about the world because you don't want to be self-indulgent and like, I don't have a right to be mad at anything. I'm just mad about the world right now. It's like, yes, the world is the trigger, but why are you mad for yourself? Let yourself go there personally, on a personal level. All right, calling in our soulmate, because you know that the anger also repels the soulmate. The soulmate will continue to circle the runway until you've let go of your anger, because that anger can like eventually spoil that relationship in the future. If you don't learn to, first of all, release that anger, it's going to keep recycling. And when the flush of the honeymoon period wears off with like this new soulmate, you start taking this person for granted. That's when you start getting, annoyed and like cabin fever eventually. Your anger starts coming out if it's not dealt with, if it's not resolved. So you want, when the actual soulmate shows up, we want to be the most prepared for this to be the sweetest, successful, relationship. Not sweet as in like, yes, you want to be sweet to one another, but you want it to be good, like honey, to something to be savored, something that is sacred. This is a sweet treasure. But also the fact that you want to be prepared and able to fight in a healthy way when you need to, and confront and be strong, and to be able to have a backbone and be your full self, and communicate your needs and communicate things that are off, and the problems that you have, right? So you want to be the most prepared that you can be. And so part of that is resolving our, emotional baggage, so that when that person comes in, we are, interacting with them with a clean slate, and not taking things out on them in an unconscious way that they don't deserve, that could ruin the relationship. So we are calling in the soulmate. Let it in, let it in. Ooh, new love. All right. This is like soulmate confirmation. A new person has stirred your romantic feelings. Well, so maybe that's some legitimate, maybe your feelings are real and valid and deserve exploration. So calling in the soulmate, maybe someone new is coming, new love is coming. So let your friends help, because they might know a thing or two. They might be able to play Cupid or set you up, or who knows how that's going to play in. But just be aware that your friends might have an effect on your love life this week. So cherish those friends. Open your energy up to be flirty, so that person, knows that you're reciprocating, and keep saying your prayers to call in that soulmate, and for God to really show you some clarity when that person comes in, give you clarity and signs so that you can recognize them. And then part of that, I think too, we need to be careful not to be so obsessed over looking for signs to tell us that someone is the one, more than we look at the signs that they're giving us themselves, right? How many times do we ignore the fact that someone's not ready, they're not pursuing us, they're showing us all the red flags, but we keep looking for these synchronicities to tell us that, to validate our limerence, so really look at what the person is really showing you. All right, so let your friends help, believe, and succeed. So 6 of Wands. So something about your, letting your friends help, or, enjoying your friends, being with your friends. Something about that is going to get you over the hump, I think, and into like a new season. The 6 of Wands, the 6 of Wands is victory. It is past the point of the conflict, and you're on your way to success. So I love this. So let your friends help, because they could have somebody that they can introduce you to, or they can give you that missing piece of what it is that they think might be holding you back, if you are really open to finding out. Okay, so flirt, we have, oh my gosh, dreams coming true. So 9 of Cups. And 2, the High Priestess. Listen. So listen to your intuition. If you are having a hunch, like the deepest suspicion that you're like, I'm attracted to this person, I think they're attracted to me. Like, listen to yourself, follow your intuition, follow your hunches, maybe even ask for some dreams, like nightly dreams, to lead you in this direction. But put yourself out there and indicate your interest, because this might be like your wish coming true. Very, very exciting. Love seeing those cards on top of flirt. Flirting might actually get you what you want this time. Ooh. Okay, success and growth. So we have 8 of Wands here. This is an indication of fast moving, things progressing, like maybe all of a sudden this might be an example of how this is always how it happens. You don't know your soulmate or this new person that comes into your life, and then one day they just show up and you're like, whoa, that was fast. Like one day I did not know my soulmate, and the next day I did know my soulmate. One day I did not have love in my life, and then, the next day I met someone new and we hit it off. And then you don't know this, but weeks from now, you're going to be in the flourishes of new love, right? So it can all happen. Everything about our life the way it is now can change very suddenly. So if you're solitary, if you're single, enjoy that while it lasts, because you may, be meeting someone soon. Things could be changing soon. 8 of Wands is also about like a lot of communication back and forth, messaging. You could think Mercury. So like fast moving communication, ideas going, messaging going, sometimes travel. Sometimes it could be like having a lot of stuff to go do, running around a lot. But this is calling in your soulmate. This is calling in your soulmate. So even back to asking for the dream, right? That communication, those messages, maybe you can start connecting to this soulmate on a soul level. Set your intention on that as you're going to sleep, that you want your soulmate to connect with your soul as you sleep in the astral realm, and guide you and lead you as to how you guys are going to end up meeting up, right? Start calling this person in. All right, and then new love. What is this? I'm feeling this. Love abounds. New love. Ace of Wands or Ace of Cups. Ace of Cups is new love. It's new, a thrush of new energy, renewal, emotional renewal, love, opening of the heart, a rush and flush of sweetness, romance. So I'm excited. So a new person has stirred your romantic feelings with an Ace of Cups there. So awesome. I mean, it's not even like an older, mature love card. This is like new love card, new love card. Something's happening. Something's brewing. So be prepared. Look cute when you go out. Flirt. They could be anywhere. They could be next to you when you're picking out cheese at the store. They could be around any corner. So be ready. Freddie. All right. Well, that is all for tonight. I will see y'all tomorrow for our weekend reflection message. Until then, peace be with you. Ciao.